Have you ever wondered why some relationships leave men feeling completely broken, questioning their worth, and struggling to rebuild their lives? Today, we're diving deep into the psychological patterns and behaviors that can devastate a man's mental health, career, and future relationships. But here's the twist. Understanding these patterns isn't about blame or gender wars. It's about recognition, healing, and prevention. I'm not here to bash anyone or create division. Instead, we're exploring real psychological phenomena that mental health professionals see every day. Whether you're a man who's experienced this, a woman who wants to understand relationship dynamics better, or someone who cares about healthy relationships, this video will give you insights that could change everything. Let's start with something that might shock you. According to relationship therapists, certain destructive patterns in relationships are so predictable that they follow almost identical scripts. These aren't random acts of cruelty. They're systematic behaviors that chip away at a person's foundation over months or years. The first pattern we need to discuss is emotional manipulation through dependency creation. This starts innocently enough. A woman might encourage her partner to rely on her for emotional validation, decision-making, or even basic daily choices. She becomes his primary source of self-worth. Sounds caring, right? But here's where it gets dangerous. Once this dependency is established, the emotional supply gets weaponized. Affection becomes conditional. Approval gets withdrawn as punishment. The man finds himself walking on eggshells, constantly trying to figure out what he did wrong. His confidence erodes because his sense of self has become tied to someone else's approval. Dr. Susan Forward, a renowned therapist, describes this as creating an emotional hostage situation. The man becomes so dependent on his partner's validation that he loses his ability to make independent decisions or trust his own judgment. This isn't love. It's control disguised as intimacy. The second destructive pattern involves systematic isolation. This doesn't happen overnight. It starts with subtle comments about his friends or family. Maybe she points out how his best friend is a bad influence, or how his mother doesn't really understand him like she does. These seeds of doubt get planted carefully. Gradually, social connections get severed. Plans with friends get sabotaged through guilt trips or manufactured emergencies. Family relationships become strained through constant criticism or deliberate conflicts. The man wakes up one day and realizes he has no support system left except for the very person who's been undermining him. This isolation serves multiple purposes. It eliminates outside perspectives that might help him recognize unhealthy patterns. It removes potential sources of emotional support. Most importantly, it makes leaving seem impossible because he has nowhere to go and no one to turn to. Now let's talk about financial manipulation, which is far more common than most people realize. This can take several forms, and it's not always about someone taking money directly. Sometimes it's about sabotaging career opportunities. Maybe she creates drama right before important meetings, or demands attention during crucial work periods. Other times, it involves creating financial dependencies. She might encourage him to make major purchases they can't afford, then use the resulting debt as leverage. Or she might push for lifestyle inflation that requires both their incomes, making it financially devastating for him to leave even if he wants to. The most insidious form involves damaging his professional reputation. This might mean showing up at his workplace to cause scenes, contacting his colleagues inappropriately, or even making false accusations that could impact his career. The goal is to make him economically vulnerable and dependent. But perhaps the most devastating pattern is the systematic destruction of his identity and self-worth. This involves a technique psychologists call gaslighting, where someone's perception of reality gets consistently undermined. She might deny conversations that happened, rewrite history to make him the villain, or convince him that his memories and feelings aren't trustworthy. Combined with constant criticism disguised as helpful feedback, this creates a perfect storm of self-doubt. His interests become stupid, his dreams become unrealistic, his friends become toxic influences, his family becomes the source of all his problems. Slowly but surely, everything that made him who he is gets redefined as flawed or wrong. The psychological impact of these patterns extends far beyond the relationship itself. Men who experience this often develop anxiety disorders, depression, and what psychologists call learned helplessness. They stop believing they can change their circumstances or make good decisions independently. This damage doesn't end when the relationship ends. Many men struggle to trust their own judgment in future relationships. They might become overly cautious and miss out on genuine connections, or they might fall into similar patterns because the dysfunction feels familiar. The professional consequences can be equally severe. Years of having his confidence undermined and his career sabotaged can result in reduced earning potential, damaged professional relationships, and missed opportunities that can't be recovered. But here's what I want every man watching this to understand. Recognizing these patterns isn't about becoming paranoid or defensive in relationships. Healthy relationships actually look completely different. They involve mutual respect, support for individual growth, encouragement of outside friendships, and celebration of each other's successes. A loving partner builds you up rather than tearing you down. She encourages your friendships rather than isolating you. She supports your career rather than sabotaging it. She wants you to be the best version of yourself, not a diminished version that's easier to control. If you're currently experiencing any of these patterns, please understand that this isn't normal relationship conflict. These are serious red flags that require professional help, or in many cases, an exit strategy. You deserve to be in a relationship where you feel valued, supported, and free to be yourself. For the women watching this, I want to be clear. This video isn't an attack on women in general. These destructive patterns can appear in any relationship, regardless of gender. The goal is awareness and prevention. If you recognize any of these behaviors in yourself, please consider seeking help from a qualified therapist. Recovery from these types of relationships is possible, but it often requires professional support. Therapists who specialize in emotional abuse can help rebuild damaged self-esteem, establish healthy boundaries, and develop the skills needed for healthier future relationships. The journey back to wholeness takes time. It involves learning to trust your own judgment again, rebuilding social connections, and reconstructing a positive sense of self. But thousands of people have successfully navigated this healing process and gone on to have fulfilling, healthy relationships. If this video resonated with you, please share it with someone who might need to hear this message. Sometimes an outside perspective can provide the clarity that's impossible to achieve from inside a destructive situation. Understanding these patterns isn't about creating division between men and women. It's about promoting healthier relationships for everyone. When we can recognize and address these destructive dynamics, We create space for genuine love, respect, and partnership to flourish. Remember, everyone deserves to be in relationships that enhance their lives rather than diminish them. If you're currently struggling with any of these issues, please reach out for professional help. You're worth fighting for, and your story isn't over yet.